Parker from TestPrepChampions.com, and in this video I'm going to be answering a question from Raven. Raven's question is, I want to get my GED at 17 and go to hair school to get my stylist license. How should I set up a long-term goal so I make enough money? Well, Raven, first of all, thank you so much for the question. I'm going to do my best to give you a good answer here. But first, I want to just give a little disclaimer. I'm not an expert in goal setting and goal achieving by any means, but I do know a fair bit about the process, so I'm going to hopefully get you going on the right track here. But I'm not an expert in that. And also, at the end of the video, I also want to hop over on my little digital whiteboard and just show you some very, very basic accounting stuff. I'm not an expert in accounting, so this is not financial advice or anything like that. This is just for information purposes, but I'm going to show you some very, very basic accounting stuff that you'll definitely want to know to set up your career and make sure that you have enough money like you asked in your question. So first of all, let's outline a basic goal achieving process here. So the first thing that I want you to do is start with your vision in mind. So by vision, what I mean is, what would you ideally like to be doing? You said you wanted to be a hairstylist, so does that mean that you want to eventually own your own shop or own multiple shops, or do you see yourself working for somebody else? What would you like to be doing ideally? And where do you see yourself working? In a shop near your hometown, in a different state, in a different city, in a different country even? Where do you see that? And also, do you see yourself, who do you see yourself working with? Are you working with, what kind of people? Are you specializing in children? Is there a special kind of, I don't know that much about hairstyling, I'll admit that, but is there a special kind of hairdo or hairstyle or procedure that you want to specialize in? Like, do you see yourself working with like high clientele that are going to spend a lot of money, like even celebrities, people like that? You know, it might sound a little bit crazy, but I just want you to think of your ideal vision. So definitely try to answer these questions. And also, what's your goal income? How much money do you want to make per year? If it's 30,000, it's 30,000. If it's 100,000, it's 100,000. If it's more, who cares? I'm not really that concerned with you being realistic for this point. I just want you to start with your vision. So definitely try to answer those questions. Start with your vision. And don't worry about how you can do it. Don't even worry if it's realistic. Just get that vision down first. Then we're going to work backwards from there. So that's the first thing. You need your vision. And then the second thing is you've got to believe that you can do it. You've got to develop confidence in yourself that you're going to be able to follow through and make it happen. So again, you start with your vision or your dream and just let yourself fantasize, let your mind go. And then you've got to develop confidence in yourself or belief or faith. And it can be religious faith, but if you're not religious, that's fine. It can just be faith in yourself, but you've got to have that confidence, because whenever you're trying to do something big like this and achieve a big goal in your life, you're going to probably have setbacks, probably multiple setbacks, whether it's just ups and downs along the road or people that doubt you, maybe even people close to you that will come out of the woodwork that you won't expect, and maybe they start putting negative thoughts in your head and that kind of thing, you know. You're going to have ups and downs, so you're going to have to develop that confidence and that belief in yourself somehow so that when you have those roadblocks, you can overcome them and you don't give up. So you got to have those two things first. And then the next thing is you want to take your vision and kind of put it into a realistic goal. Okay, so you want to make it into a realistic goal. So for example, if you want to be practicing somewhere, or not practicing, I guess whatever they call it, if you want to be working, say on the boardwalk at a beach somewhere making, you know, over 100 grand a year, or if you just want to work in a little small town and make 30, 40, 50 grand a year, whatever it is for you, I'm not sure, it's your vision, but you got to narrow that vision down into something specific, and that's going to be your long-term goal. And then we're going to work backwards from there, and you're going to map out a series of goals along the way. These are going to be smaller goals that you've got to achieve along the way in order to get to that big goal, that ideal vision that you had in mind. And so I want you to break this down into the smaller goals and make a list of them. So for you, the first thing probably would be to pass the GED test, pass all 4 sections, so that would be a shorter term goal, and also to pass your hairstylist exam, test, license, certification, whatever it is. Like I said, I don't know too much about hairstyling, but those would probably be 2 smaller goals that you're going to have to accomplish on your way to making this a big career. All right, and so then once you've got that, you've got the vision, you've got that belief in yourself, you're going to build that up, and then you turn your vision into these shorter term goals that are going to help you get there, like stepping stones. I want you to make these goals SMART. And what I mean by that is the SMART goal setting method. It's a proven method that is very effective for goal setting. It's not the only one out there, but it is a pretty good method, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory once you get the hang of it. But SMART stands for specific, measurable, Achievable, relevant, and timely. So let me just break this down. So SMART stands for specific. The S, stands for specific. Make the goal very specific. So passing the GED test, all 4 sections, that's about as specific as you can get, I would say. So then measurable would be, how are you going to measure your progress along the way? So perhaps you'll take a practice test at the beginning, and then you'll study for a little bit, and then every couple of weeks you'll take a test again and see how your score is improving. That's one way that you can measure your progress. You could also do it in time. You could see how much time you could track your time, your hours spent studying over time. Although I think your probably progress is in your scores improving is probably a better metric, but that's up to you however you want to do that. And then A would be achievable, so meaning you've got to be at least somewhat realistic, right? You can't expect to, like for example, trying to get a perfect score on every section, it's probably not a realistic goal, okay, for most people. Trying to pass every section, that's absolutely an achievable goal. Trying to get a very good score on every section is definitely doable, but a perfect score, I've seen people do it on certain sections, but it doesn't happen very often. It's probably one of those goals where you would just, it would be more trouble than it's worth. But you could still set a goal to have a very good score, and I think that would be something that's more achievable. So by achievable, that just means be realistic. And that doesn't mean sell yourself short. That doesn't mean settle for less than you want to achieve. It just means you got to pick something that is going to be realistic for you. Okay, so a lot of times I tell people, pick something that you think is going to be realistic, and then pick something that's going to cause you to stretch and get out of your comfort zone, but it's not going to be just so crazy that you're just going to get frustrated. And then, so R would be relevant, and so that means these shorter term goals are these stepping stone goals along the way to achieving your ideal vision. You've got to make sure that the stepping stone goals along the way are relevant to that. So if you've got to get your GED done before you can go and get your hairstyling license, then that would be obviously a relevant goal to your long-term dream. And then timely just means give yourself a time limit. And there's an old adage from, I think his name was Parkinson. He was back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. He was a commentator. He did social commentary and satirical commentary, and he came up with this law called Parkinson's Law, where it basically means that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. That just means that if you give yourself a year to study for the test, it's going to take a year to do it. If you give yourself 5 weeks, you might be able to get it done in 5 weeks. If you give yourself 3 weeks, you might be able to get it all done in 3 weeks. Now, whatever your schedule is, depending on how much time you can put into studying for the GED, that's going to kind of depend. That's going to kind of determine how long it's going to take you to get it. But I just mean you want to make them timely. So for all of the sections on the GED, you want to give yourself dates. Like you want to have the math section done in a month, or you want to have the math section done in a week. However, whatever your timeline is, you got to do what's going to be best for you. But I would, for all of the 4 sections on the test, give yourself a deadline. And you're just kind of guessing at that deadline because you may or may not hit it right on, but you got to give yourself those deadlines. So for all of your goals that you set, you want to make them SMART, okay? And like I said, that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So do that for all of your shorter-term goals along the way to your long-term goal. So that's basically the process here for goals. Just like I said, just in summary, just start, let your brain go, just fantasize. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself working? How much do you see yourself making? And then from there, you want to just make sure that you really believe in yourself and that you can do whatever you want, because you're going to face some setbacks along the way. So before you actually make this a real goal and go after it, you've got to just decide for yourself right now that no matter what happens, no matter what setbacks happen, this is what you want and you're not going to give up. And then after that, you start making more specific plans and you take that vision, turn it into a longer term goal and make it a real specific goal. And then you define smaller goals along the way that you'll achieve, make those goals SMART, and then you're good to go. All right, so now I'm going to just hop over here and just show you some very basic accounting stuff. And again, this is not financial advice or anything. It's just some basic info since it goes along with the question that you asked. So let's go over and do that now. For a very basic accounting 101 formula that you're definitely going to have to know for both your personal finances to achieve your money goals, and also if you start your own business or take over your own hairstylist place company someday, then you're also definitely going to need to know this. This is very basic, but the basics are oftentimes the most useful. So the formula is your revenues minus expenses equals your net income. And all this means, in case you're not already sure what this means, your revenues are your income. So if we're talking about your, let's say, we're talking about monthly revenue, monthly expenses, and monthly net income. This is just going to be your monthly income. Okay, so this would be if you're working at a hairstylist place And whatever your paycheck is every month, that would be your income, if that's your only source of income. If you've got other incomes, then you would just add that all up as well. And then your expenses are hopefully pretty self-explanatory. These would be, for example, your bills and your rent payments, if you're, or a mortgage payment, car payment, whatever expenses you've got to pay each month. Gas money if you want to get that specific, but that's your expenses. And then the net income is whatever you keep. And then you can do whatever you want with that money. So how much money you have left over to either save or just spend on fun stuff or on your leisure stuff, that's basically what you have left. So let's say that this is what's left. Okay, and also I would consider under expenses, let's also say like your groceries and food. So let me just put food here. Things that you've got to spend money on, and then your net income is just the income that you keep after that's over. So this is just a very, very basic formula, and you can just use basic algebra here, as you'll have to know for the GED test, to figure out how much you're going to need to make every month. So let's say that you want to keep, I don't know, let's say that you want to keep $1,000 a month. So let's say that after your expenses, you want to have $1,000 left over to either just go spend on whatever you want, go out with your friends, hang out, or to save, or do whatever you want with. Let's say that that's your goal, is to keep $1,000 a month. Okay, and so then what you would need to do is you would need to subtract your expenses, put your expenses in here. So I don't know what your expenses are. Let's just say 1,000, just for the sake of starting somewhere. So let's put for your revenue, let's just put R, because that's what we're trying to figure out. So you do R minus 1,000, and I don't know what your expenses are, like I said. Let's just say that your expenses are about $1,000 a month. You've got your rent to pay, and then you've got your bills, your groceries, and let's say that costs you about $1,000. Okay, so then your revenue is what you want to figure out. So again, like I said, if you want to figure out, we're trying to figure out, let's say your goal is to have $1,000 left over to do whatever you want with at the end of each month. Your expenses are $1,000. How much money do you have to make in order to make that a reality each month? So all we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation for R, which that's a fancy way of saying we want to get the R alone by itself on the equation. So we've got 1,000 here, and we've got R minus 1,000, so we're going to add 1,000 to both sides of the equation. And this is just basic math, just simplifying an equation here. And whatever you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other. So we add 1,000 over here, minus 1,000 plus 1,000 gives us 0, and so we add 1,000 over here, that gives us R equals 2,000. Okay, so R would then equal 2,000. And so all that tells us is that if you want to have $1,000 left over at the end of each month to do whatever you want with, you would need to be making an income of $2,000 a month. And this is not including taxes or anything like that. You could put that in your expenses if you want to. And so from there, then let's say you wanted to figure out how many hours you would have to work in order to make that $1,000 a month. So let's say let's start with $2,000, for example, and that's supposed to be a dollar sign, but it doesn't look like it. You get that $2,000. Let's just say that that's your goal to make every month is $2,000, and you can plug in whatever number you want. It's still going to work the same. So then let's think about how much you're making per hour. So let's put 1 hour up here, and let's put in the denominator of a fraction here, we're going to put however much you're making. So let's just be conservative here. Let's just say you're making $10 for every hour. So we've got 2,000, and we're going to divide that by 10. And so we do that, and that's going to give us 200 hours. So that tells you that if you're making $10 an hour, you'd have to work 200 hours a month in order to make that $2,000 of income. And this is not including tax or anything, like I said. And so then from there, if you want to figure out, well, I have to work 200 hours a month to make $2,000, then all you do is just divide that by 4, because there's 4 weeks in a month, and that's going to tell you how many hours you would have to work each month. That comes out to 50 hours. Okay? And so if you're not happy with that, right, if you don't want to work 50 hours or you're not able to work 50 hours, then you would want to find a job where you're going to make more money per week. So the only way really to increase this monthly income is to work more hours, get another job, or work for a place where you're going to get paid a little bit more. Okay, so again, all I did, let me just go back here and get rid of all of this just to show you so that you can do this however you want. is you're going to use that formula. Your revenue minus expenses equals whatever much you want to keep at the end of the month. Okay, so just think right now, what's your target goal? Ideally, or right now, either way, just think, what's your target goal? It could be, if you want to think bigger, you could think a couple thousand a month. If you just want to make an extra if you just want to have an extra $1,000 at the end of each month, or if you want to have whatever it is, you just start with that. So your income that you desire. So let's say, I don't know, let's say you're going to think really big here and you want to start bringing in $3,000 of extra money each month. And let's say that your expenses are only $1,000. Okay, and then we would have your revenue minus 1,000 equals 3,000, and we've just set up an equation here where we would figure out for you just a good estimate, because we're not taking in taxes or anything like that into consideration, how much revenue you would have to make each month in order to have $3,000 left over after your expenses. And so again, if we're just assuming you have $1,000 expenses, you would just add 1,000 to both sides of your equation. And let's see, 3,000 plus 1,000 is 4,000. So that just tells you that you would need to make $4,000 each month. And if your expenses were 1,000, you would then have $3,000 left over. So that's a lot, I think, for obviously for most hairstylist jobs. I don't know that you'd be making that much right off the bat, but I guess it depends on some things. But that's just a very basic formula, and you can use this so basically you figure out how much money that you need each month for your expenses, and make sure that you cover your expenses first. And so you take that, you could also do it the other way, right? So let's say that your revenue each month is, you're making, let's say, $1,000 a month. And so then you've got $800 a month in expenses, which this is probably more realistic, because this is about where I was when I first graduated college, before I went back to school. When I was working initially, my paychecks were close to $1,000 a month, and my expenses were about $800. So I would then be left with about $200, and wasn't fun, but I managed, I survived. Now, you can get yourself in big trouble if you get a negative number over here. So let's say that, for example, you're making $800 a month and you owe $1,000. Okay, you're going to get yourself in huge trouble here, because 800 minus 1,000 is negative. So you're going to be in the negatives, right? You're going to be, and that's really bad. So that's all you have to do to make sure that your finances are going to balance, is just look at how much you're making each month, subtract your expenses from that, whatever's left over is yours to keep. And I know it's not that simple, because you're probably going to use that money to either save it or for something else, but for whatever else you want. But that's just a basic formula. And like I said, I'm not an expert. This is just basic stuff. This isn't financial advice, just some information for you to consider and use. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you do, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. And if you like it, let me know down below with a comment. Good luck to you. Thanks again for the question.